So I know that many of you can't see me, and I know that I'm only sharing my screen at the moment, but I'm John Stinson. I'm the chair for CIAT Scotland East Region, and I want to welcome you all to this Scotland East Region Student and Early Career AT Support Series. So this is the 5th webinar in this particular series, and a very special one. Over the last week and a bit, we have been collecting questions from those ATs out there that want some specific guidance and general advice on things relating to finding that job and getting that job. So this Ask the Expert webinar will be the first in a few of these planned support events to help our student and early career AT colleagues. Right, so before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to remind you all about the CIAT Scotland East Region Knowledge Exchange Series. So I trust that many of you here this evening will either be a student or an early career AT looking for some wisdom and words of encouragement about your career, or perhaps you're a mentor or an AT support professional wanting to find out more how to support the junior and early career ATs within your organisation. This support event of ours has been running since March this year, and will continue to add to this series to help those who are looking to move into their career or to move through their career as successfully as possible. So the other 4 sessions that we have in this knowledge exchange event run around retrofit, building performance, design with mass timber, and one that might be of interest to many of the student and early career ATs this evening is a new series on building modelling that starts next Thursday. So please do keep an eye out on the CIAT Scotland East Region LinkedIn page for more details on that. I'll come back in at the end to talk a little bit more on that event. But now it is my extreme pleasure to introduce a real powerhouse of speakers this evening. Definitely worth making it to 6:30 in front of your computer to hear our 3 guest speakers speak. So Alex Stickle, no stranger to many of you, the CIAT Scotland East Region Aspirations Chair. And whenever I finish speaking, Alex will be the host for this evening and will be the master of ceremonies. And she'll be the one with the questions being asked to our very special guest. So a very warm welcome to Sarah, who many of you will know as a specialist in recruitment for architectural jobs at Peace Recruitment, which is a very, very rare specialisation. So we are very thankful to Sarah and the Peace Recruitment team for joining us here this evening. Sarah will be the one on our virtual guest sofa, and the one that will be taking the brunt of all the questions that Collab have gathered over the past week and a bit. Which brings me nicely to extending a special welcome to one of Collab's directors and a friend and counterpart from CIOB Scotland Central Hub. So Anne, thank you to Anne for being here and joining us tonight after running her own confidence building event on yesterday evening. So once we have exhausted Sarah and thrown as many questions as we can at her, Anne will come on and we'll wrap up this event with even more guidance and some signposting to some resources to help you along that AT career. So that is enough from me. Alex, can I hand over to you?
Yeah, that's no problem at all. Thanks for introducing us all. If everyone is okay, I'm more than happy to start with our questions. I've just got a few clarifications to make before I start interviewing Sarah. The first one is that all of our questions are relating to working in the UK, as that is the only questions that we're able to answer. The questions are specific to architectural technologists, but may have some insights for other architectural-based professions and building surveyors as well. And our comments cannot reflect every aspect of the entire industry, and it doesn't reflect the views of any one organisation either. So Sarah, if you're happy to start, our first section is on portfolios. So the first question I have for you is, what length should a portfolio be? What projects should be included, and how detailed should it be as well?
Sure. So portfolios are really, really specific to the individual. There is no one size fits all kind of format to them. Under 10 meg is generally the size limit, mainly because most organizations have an email limit of 10 meg, so it can be tricky to actually get them to the hiring manager, anything over that. With regards to what projects should be involved, again, it really depends on the company that you're applying to. If you're applying to a large private practice, you know, Kepi or 3D Reader, somebody, they specialize in a number of sectors. The more variety you put in, the better. If you're applying to a house builder, obviously focus in on your residential experience, because they don't care. If you've built a school or designed a lovely hospital, you know, they're looking for the resi work. So just in general, you know, make sure you're researching where you're sending it to. The other thing to mention would be sketches. I hear it a lot. Clients love sketches. They love to see the sort of conceptual side, the back of napkin sort of drawings. They just kind of see it as really kind of designy, and they really kind of love that, seeing that kind of brought to life, specifically again within the design-driven private practices.
Brilliant. So our next question, which kind of ties in quite nicely, is how should you go about tailoring your portfolio for specific jobs or a specific employer?
Sure. Again, I mean, to be honest, the answer is very similar to the last. Just making sure that you're researching, look at news articles as to what they're doing at the moment. Sustainability, passive house is massive. Loads and loads of practices are getting on board with that and, you know, jumping onto the bandwagon. So if you've done anything of that nature and they're really into that, of course, you know, make sure you're including it. So it's all about research and just making sure you're sending the right thing to the right place, really.
Brilliant. So our next section of questions is relating to interviews. And the first one we have here is it best to give one word or short answers to interview questions to let them use the time effectively, or should an interviewee practice giving long answers with lots of examples to their skills and abilities?
So that is kind of a balancing act, to be perfectly honest. You don't want to witter on. You don't want to be kind of taking up all the time and not let the client get a word in edgeways. But, you know, definitely not one-word answers. I've had a lot of interview feedback in the past where people have used, you know, just used the one word. And, you know, the trick is to show a bit of your personality. That's what companies want to see, especially at kind of a graduate level where you maybe don't have as much, you know, work to show or as large a portfolio for them to judge you on. They want to see you and how you're going to interact with their team, how you're going to kind of, you know, make the working day a joy and, you know, get on with everybody. So really the trick is to just be conversational, be yourself, but equally don't go on for hours. Just there are a few standard questions to expect in interviews. Tell me about yourself is almost always going to be the opening gambit. So what I always advise people to do is just write a little paragraph, you know, just maybe a minute of talking about your work. You know, don't speak about hobbies or anything in that time. You know, base it on exactly what you've been doing at university, and, you know, kind of go from there. So just prepare yourself for the main questions, but definitely not one-word answers.
Thank you so much. So the next question is quite topical at the moment for us. Will remote working last much longer? This specific person is asked, what if they're asked to move closer to their offices? Is asking for remote working during an interview going to put off an employer?
The short answer is no. More practices are much more open to kind of flexible working than they were pre-pandemic. The general consensus seems to be that companies are looking to introduce kind of hybrid working. On a more junior side, if I'm honest, I would advise going into the office, purely because I think the raft of ATs who have graduated and entered the market this year have really missed. They've missed a decent part of their training, because there's a lot to learn when you're sitting beside, you know, a senior director who's leading, you know, these massive multi-million-pound projects. Sitting beside them and just, you know, watching them and listening to them, you can learn a lot. So in my opinion, a lot of companies want junior people to be in the office, but it's not going to put companies off if you say, you know, could I work a Friday from home, or, you know, I've got a dog during lockdown, you know, I need to be home early, or children, you know, these are all perfectly reasonable reasons to work flexibly, and practices are open to it now.
It's great to hear that that's moving in that direction as well. Our next question is relating to placements and unpaid internships. This question says, would you recommend approaching practices for placements if they aren't advertising any jobs? If so, what should you say, or any general advice you could give regarding placements and unpaid internships would be appreciated.
100% is the short answer to that. The more proactive you are, the more chance you are going to find the job of your dreams. A lot of practices actually wait for people coming out of university to be proactive. So my advice would always be, write down where you apply to, you know, look on LinkedIn, try and find the hiring manager. Often if it goes to an HR inbox, it can easily be lost in the system. So do your research, try and send it to the right person, and then follow up. A lot of people are scared to do that, and to just phone a switchboard and say, listen, I sent you my CV 48 hours ago, I haven't heard anything back. Could you give me some feedback? And along with redirecting their attention to your CV, what you're doing at that point is you can almost guarantee whoever you're speaking to will be sitting with your CV open on their computer, because they'll look at it to give you the feedback. And there's been a few instances I've heard of where people have kind of gone, oh, actually, we didn't, you know, we just skimmed it and hadn't seen that you'd done that, you know, come in for an interview. So 100%, you know, be proactive, get your name out there, connect with people on LinkedIn, speak to recruiters, you know, do everything you can, because it's a tough market to get your foot in the door. You know, I speak to people on a daily basis, and it is difficult at times.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, especially coming out of a pandemic as well. It just makes it all more difficult.
100%.
Our next questions are relating to general challenges and difficulties. The first question asks, is there any way around, or is it even advisable to apply for jobs that say a minimum of 2-year experience is required if you have less than the 2 years, such as 1 year or even less?
Yeah, again, absolutely. A lot of these job specs that you see online are basically HR have sat and kind of written down what their 10 out of 10 100% is. Often this person doesn't exist. It can be, you know, they can sort of list all these characteristics, and then when you actually speak to them and say, you know, do you need somebody with X, Y, and Z? And they go, well, actually, no, we don't. So if there's, you know, if you're slightly short but you feel you could do the job, get your name in the mix. As I say, jobs very rarely go to a 10 out of 10 candidate, to be honest.
That's great to hear, though, that there's still hope out there, even if you don't meet all the requirements. Just show that initiative, and it goes a long way.
Or again, I say, you know, speak to a recruiter. That's our job, is to, you know, to speak to these clients. We know them, we have their ear, you know, we've worked with them, placed however many people with them in the past. You know, if we phone them up and say, listen, I know this person doesn't have this specific thing, but they can, you know, I believe they can do the job. Often, you know, that counts for something.
Brilliant. Our next question says, what should you do if you're applying to jobs but you're not getting any interviews?
Again, very similar to what I said before, phone, ask for feedback, be proactive, get your name out there. I mean, if you phone up and say, can you tell me what's gone wrong? The worst that's going to happen is they're going to give you some constructive feedback as to, you know, oh, I didn't like this in your portfolio, or there were errors in your CV, or whatever. So genuinely just be as forthcoming as you can.
Great to hear. Our next question is relating to salary. How long into your first job should you be expected to wait until you get pay increase? That's
a tricky one, because it massively varies dependent on practice. The larger practices tend to have annual salary reviews. It's actually a great question to ask in interviews. You can guarantee in interviews at the end of the chat, they'll say, do you have anything to ask us? Is there anything you want to know more about? A great question to ask is, you know, what's your progression structure? Maybe don't put it quite as bluntly as when am I going to get a pay rise? Obviously, just be kind of maybe a bit more tactful about it. But what's your progression structure? Do you do annual salary reviews? It's a great question to ask, and it gives you a good insight into how they treat people. Another good thing to do would be to look on LinkedIn and see how quickly people are progressing. In certain companies, X company in Glasgow, if somebody is moving up through the ranks year on year, you can guarantee that's a practice who are, committed to progressing people and committed to getting you moved up that ladder. But smaller practices often not so much. So yeah, just ask at an interview.
Brilliant. Our next question is relating quite similarly to that. What is the best way to ask an employer for a pay rise?
To be honest, I would say write down why you believe you should get a pay rise. So, if you've done loads of networking events, or you've led a massive project which has been a real success for the company and they're shouting about it all over LinkedIn and Facebook and everything, that's a reason to go in and justify why you should get a pay rise. Avoid going in and just saying, oh, I know so-and-so got a pay rise after a year. It's not the best way to do it, and often it gets people's backs up. But if you've got a reason and a genuine, kind of thing in your head where you're thinking, I deserve a pay rise for X, Y, and Z, just go and lay it out. Never go down. I would never recommend anyone to start looking for jobs and then use another offer as kind of leverage. I've seen it done before, and I've seen way too many times companies call people's bluff, and the person's expecting that they'll go, great, we'll offer you, £3,000 more on top of your pay rise, and instead the companies just go, right, fine, thank you.
Offer you found, basically.
It's a risky line to take, so I would never ever advise using another offer as leverage.
Okay, so we've got a couple final questions just to wrap up. The first one is, what can you see in the future of job opportunities for an architectural technologist?
At the moment, ATs are massively in demand, absolutely massively. I mean, I'm getting calls on a daily basis for companies and practices who are looking for 2, 3, 4 architectural technicians and technologists to join them. So the market is there, the market is buoyant, and I'm not seeing that slowing down, to be perfectly honest, which is really positive, coming out of obviously the situation we've all been in for the last 18 months. The market is absolutely flying, specifically within anyone who deals within residential or healthcare. These practices just seem to be screaming out for ATs specifically. Revit is one thing to mention. It is the buzzword at the moment. Everyone's looking for it. I mean, I think most universities are now teaching people in Revit, which is great. But I know there are a few rogue ones out there who are still teaching in Vectorworks and AutoCAD and ArchiCAD and all this. So if that is the case, get yourself a Revit license. Anyone in education can get a free Revit license, and start, practice building some walls in it, some doors, just get yourself to grips with it, because a knowledge of it is critical right now.
Great to hear that the industry is moving in that direction as well, because it's take a while to.
It's time. But no, it's definitely there.
A final question here for you. It says, are you seeing any gaps in what skills graduate ATs have and the skills that AT employers are currently looking for?
Yeah, I think a lot of courses are still focusing very heavily on academic. Obviously, they're not kind of actually giving people those placements, or kind of putting them in for a 6-month stint at a private practice or something. And I think that's something which needs to be done. It needs to be changed, because that practical experience is worth its weight in gold. Right now, a purely academic knowledge is often overlooked by employers, if I'm totally honest, which is what makes it such a difficult industry to really get yourself into, because everyone's essentially entering the market with the same portfolio, the same work experience, the same 4 unis in Scotland that through architectural technology. And so that's why it can be such a tricky industry to really break into. But I would say definitely software skills and practical experience. So if, put yourself out there again, if you feel like your course isn't giving you that experience, approach a company yourself and say, over summer, can I come in and work with you? Could I just, pay me minimum wage, or can I shadow one of your directors or your, seniors or something? Because it massively matters. And also, if you get a good in and you make a good impression over summer, that company could come back to you and offer you a job for when you graduate. So, it's worth it.
Definitely about who you know then, if you're wanting that extra experience.
Architecture's a village. Everyone knows everyone. So the more people you know, the better.
Brilliant. Well, that takes us to the end of our kind of pre-listed questions. So I can just give you some time to explain what Peace Recruitment will offer and all that sort of thing as well. Just over to you.
So Peace Recruitment, basically, we are a specialist construction recruiter. We've been around in the Scottish market now for circa 12 years. I've personally been doing architecture recruitment for 3.5. We work with a lot of the private practices, I would say the majority of the private practices, along with the house builders, the contractors. So whatever avenue it is you want to go down, we can help you with that, along as, I know there was a couple of questions about building surveying, etc. We do that as well. Obviously, I'm there. What I'll do is I'll connect with all of you on LinkedIn after this. If there's anyone who wants to ask a question, maybe a bit shy, didn't want to kind of put their name out there, feel free to DM me, feel free to, pop a wee email to me with your portfolio. I can look over it, or your CV, give you any sort of tips. But basically, at this sort of graduate level, what we're here to do is to help you get that kind of movement into the market. And then with obviously the hopes that in a good few years' time, you'll remember us and remember the service and the quality that we gave you, and that maybe that kind of step up and come back to us time and time again, basically.
Brilliant. Thanks for letting us get that insight to what Peace Recruitment can offer, and hopefully that will help a lot of our attendees as well, get their foot in the door there. Since we are kind of burning through those kind of questions, we can easily jump back to a couple that maybe we've skipped over if you like, or we can just hand back to John. It's whatever you'd feel like, basically.
Yeah, we can do a couple more.
Okay, I'm just looking through our list just now. One question here that I think I've received a couple times from current students, recent graduates and such. Someone asked if they have no industry experience, what should they say in an interview if they're asked to provide examples of work? Would college or uni work be sufficient in that, or are they still expecting something else?
I mean, if you don't have practical experience, you don't have practical experience. There's not much you can do about that. So university and college work, absolutely make the most of it. I always say to people, if you're interviewing and you're taking a portfolio in to speak to people, choose 2 or 3 projects that you're really passionate about, that you can speak about for ages and ages, and focus in on them. One that you've really been happy with the outcome, you've played a massive part in, it's been your final year work and you've spent the whole year designing it. Focus in on that and make sure that you're making the most of what you do have, because I mean, as I say, if you don't have the experience, then there's no point trying to make out that you do, because people do get jobs with no industry experience. It happens all the time. There are great graduate schemes out there. Most of the private practices have large graduate schemes and aim to bring in 15 to 20 new graduates per year via the universities, and nobody's leaving university with massive portfolios and having led a multi-million-pound school or something. It doesn't happen. So yeah, work with what you've got.
Great. Another question that kind of relates to that is someone's asked, should they accept an unpaid intern type role or job placement as a necessary means to having a better chance at getting a paid job?
I would say no, personally. I don't think so. I think you're trained, you're a commodity, you're going to be bringing them in money and work and taking a load off, some of their senior staff. That's not something that should be unpaid. in my opinion. And I think that you tread a fine line if you do go down that route of underselling yourself. So even when you do get a salary or they do offer you a job, it's not likely to be very high because they're kind of thinking, oh, well, you know, she doesn't need it. You know, they'll work for free. So yeah, I always think, unless it's desperate situation and you're really struggling and, you know, can't get anything. Of course, I know a lot of practices do competition teams and all this kind of stuff, but yeah, I don't think it's a route I would be rushing down if I were you.
Great. Yeah, it definitely sounds like a bit of a slippery slope if you're trying to get in the door, but it
undervalues the skill set that you're bringing, and you are bringing a skill set.
Yeah, because if you've got your degree, then that obviously brings a level of experience on its own, even if it's only in an academic sense, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. One question here I think is quite an interesting one. Have you noticed a change in the job opportunities for architectural technologists and architectural professions in the past few years?
I would say there's more of them now than when I started with Peace, whether that's because we've grabbed market share as a company or, you know, the market's just genuinely doing that. I don't know. But for sure, there seems to be a massive need right now for ATs, more so than any other architectural professionals. It just seems like there's so many projects which are coming back. Obviously, a lot of projects were shelved 18 months ago when we all locked down. Things have been given the green light again, and things are moving, and then more projects are coming in, more tenders are coming in, and there is a skill shortage. You know, for sure there is. So I think that would be the main difference, and then obviously the difference in software skills again. I think when I started 3.5 years ago, Revit technicians were not they were maybe a bit thin on the ground, whereas there's a lot more of them now. You know, it seems like AutoCAD is maybe becoming a little bit more outdated.
Yeah, I think I've definitely seen that myself, just in the kind of skills that expected on some jobs mentioned on LinkedIn and such. It's always Revit preferred over AutoCAD these days. It's nice to see.
Always. I mean, I swear the word I say the most in my life is Revit. It's just constant.
Okay, so I think we can wrap up our questions there, and we can just hand back over to John if he's around. He should be somewhere on the call.
He is. He's just not easily seen. Thank you very much, Alex. That was great. Thank you for chairing that session and asking those questions. And to Sarah, you moved through those questions with amazing speed and efficiency. Sorry if
I'm not to ramble. I have a habit of rambling.
It's so easy to lose track of time as well whenever you're kind of burning through those sorts of things. Sorry for ambushing you there if we threw an extra couple at the end.
That's fine.
It's been great to get your insight on those particular topics. So to everyone, like we said at the very start, this is not an open Q&A thing. These are kind of pre-asked Q&A. So if you have asked a question in the chat, we will package that up and send it through to Sarah. But as Sarah had said, please feel free to connect with Sarah on LinkedIn and start your own relationship there with Peace Recruitment. So thank you very much, Sarah. And I want to introduce Anne. So Anne, if you can, yep, there you are. If you could spend just a few moments, 5 or so minutes, just to introduce a lot of our kind of highlight the resources and the benefits of the collab community and any kind of CIOB crossovers, signposting you might have of benefit to those in the early career part of their journey.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Thank you, Sean. Hi, everyone. My name's Anne O'Caffer, and I'm a construction planner with Cruden, Building West in Glasgow. And I also carry another couple of hats, which I'm wearing tonight. I am here representing the Collabed community and also CIOB, which is the Chartered Institute of Building. So firstly, Collabed. Collabed is a social media for the construction industry. And they have a website where you can find jobs also. There's job boards, there's forums, competitions. At the moment, we have a portfolio competition, and you'll see that if you are linked with any of our social medias. People have been sharing their amazing portfolios on there, and some of the talent that you have is absolutely incredible, and I'm loving seeing it. So if you haven't done that, I think we have our entries are open till the 13th, so there's still some time to get in and get yours posted up on the social media again, so it's a good way to share. We are also launching some learning courses very soon, and it's free to sign up for anyone. That's individuals and businesses. So those of you who are supporting ATs or looking for ATs, you can also sign up on the website, which is collab.co.uk. And you can also put your CVs and portfolios on there as well. And the businesses who have sites on there are able to view CVs and portfolios from there as well. Like I said, we're on all the social medias, all the main ones, the Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter, so you can find us on there if you search for Collabed. And as far as the CIOB goes, CIOB has a young person's section called Tomorrow's Leaders, which is for students and young and new professionals coming into the construction industry and built environment professions. We are what they call a broad church of professions. We don't solely focus on construction managers. There are members who are quantity surveyors, building surveyors, architecture as well. So it's open to everyone. Student membership is absolutely free to students of any built environment profession, and that offers you access to resources such as the CIOB Academy and some networking events that we will do. You'll see us certainly in Scotland. I'm working with the Ciat group, and we'll be doing some crossover events because some of the topics that we are interested in are the same for the aspirations group. So we'll be working together very closely, and generally be doing that across the UK. CIOB has groups across the UK. In Scotland, we have representation as well in universities and colleges across Scotland and across the UK, really, if you're out with Scotland joining the call tonight. For more information about the CIOB, you can download the CIOB Connect app, or you can go to the website at ciob.org.uk. And that's me. Thank you, John. I'm going to pass back to John, and he's going to wrap up this meeting. Thank you, everyone.
A very, very special thanks to Alex, Sarah and Anne for delivering this evening's event. Interesting questions and phenomenal answers. It is so very rare to get that level of insight and insider information and knowledge of all the things workings and recruitment around job placement, specifically for those in architectural technology. So it's clear that Sarah and Peace Recruitment will be allies with you on your journey, and Collabed, as they continue to grow from strength to strength, will provide amazing resources and a community support platform, which is also very important whenever you're moving through your journey. And I want to thank everyone that took time from their evening schedule to join us today. And I would encourage anyone who is a CIAT associate member or a student member or even a full member to consider that joint accreditation with CIOB. We do an awful lot together, and we do share a lot of resources. Right, before we go and let everyone slip back off into their evening and get ready for Friday ahead, if you do find yourself next week with a spare 90 minutes on Thursday, the 16th of September, and you want to deepen or expand your understanding of building modelling, I'd welcome you to join us as we introduce AT speakers from Vectorworks UK and from BIM Academy. Now, they're going to be our keynote speakers to open our building modelling for architectural technology knowledge exchange series, which is going to be probably one of our longest series, along with the early career support one. The event next week, we will be discussing and providing examples of how the fundamentals of building information modeling and metadata can be applied to real-world projects, and provide some tutorials on integrated software for sustainable building designing within the BIM workflows. So until then, thanks again to our guest speakers. Thanks to Alex, thanks to Sarah, and to Anne. I want to say cheerio to you all, and until next week, enjoy the rest of your week, and goodbye for now.